Christian from Tribeca Trade Group, and this is your end of day as well as end of week recap for Friday, the February 9th, and we've got the Super Bowl this weekend. So hope everybody's excited. Go Giants. Should be a great game for the. I'm just kidding. It should be a great game, and I'm looking forward to it. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only, not giving out any advice or recommendations. I apologize. That will be my only bad joke of the broadcast today. So a lot of green on the screen. I always start with these videos with looking at the day and what performed well. And it just kind of felt like another risk on type of day, with small caps leading for the second day in a row. Thought they were, could have been breaking to the downside. What a reversal off that virgin point of control that we talked about earlier this week. If you're not familiar with that, I could bring that up for you real quick. But I'm even shocked by that. Here was the right to the basically almost to the penny. Price came down here, kind of checked this. As I mentioned, that when the virgin point of controls, when they're below price action, it could be an area of demand. When they're above, it's usually an area of supply. But that was, very traditional type of VPOC reversal. And then look at what we did here the last couple of days, and going from in the beginning of the week from a partial what could have been, or not partial, but could have been a possible breakdown in the small caps to almost going back out to breaking out. So that's how crazy these small caps have been. And on the 1 hour, we also saw the same thing. There was a virgin point of control in here, not a real fast reversal off of that, but it just kind of built and built and built, off of that. So I found that super impressive to see the performance. And then not just that, but also the micro caps, which were also up about 1.5%. The Qs, certainly no slouch there, up 1%. A lot of movers within those. The S&P was still up about 0.5%. Bonds were slightly lower on the day. I'll talk about that too. I think that's one of my big charts to watch for next week is, where the TLT is right now. Let's just see if we've got, I don't think we have. We did take out a VPOC on the 1 hour, but really what I'm focused on is, what we could see next week. We've got the CPI report next week, right? The CPI report is the CPI report is going to be Tuesday morning, right? So they're looking for a 0.2. Kind of interesting to see this revision number. I guess they revised not just the previous month, but other months, and there was some commentary around that. Oh, look at the sun. I got the sun, little reflection there. Downtown New York City. The sun sets and close to the water here, right about 2 blocks away from the East River down in New York City. So you're going to have to put up with the glare there for a minute. But yeah, that's going to be very interesting next week. 0.2 is what the estimate is. I guess so. We already know what the revision is from last month, and we'll go from there. It's going to be interesting because certain things have gone up. We know that we got a jobs report a couple of weeks back where wages increased, but probably some commodity prices have decreased. So we'll see how it all shakes out next week, next Tuesday. And bonds, yeah, this is one of the charts that I'm really paying attention to. I seem to have lost the. I'll just go to the weekly chart. I must have made an error on my chart, but there you go. This is what I'm watching here is whether or not TLT is going to hold on to this bottom of value, and possibly rally from there. So that's something that we'll have to see. Let's see if I could load layout. I don't know if I'll get it here. There we go. I think that will work. I don't know why I've got BABA saved, but what a disappointment BABA was, right? Moving back down, really couldn't take out too much to the upside. I'll still watch and pay attention to Alibaba because I think it's an interesting story. But so many earnings reports this week. I mean, really, it was a hectic week in terms of earnings reports, and just kind of fast and furious in terms of how many reports that we've got and how many movers. I think the takeaway, before I kind of get into anything else here, looking at some of these earnings reports, and of course SMCI, but I often talk about how earnings reports really can set the tone. Now, of course, SMCI gave pre-guidance, and then the number was even, better than that. But notice how the personality has changed in this stock, right? And that's what earnings do, right? Is they can completely change the personality of a stock, because if it's results that people weren't expecting, and if the stock has been basing like that, the moves can be quite explosive. And I was talking about this name earlier today, and I kind of glanced over at it. I don't think it had, not ARM. ARM had a nice day, by the way. Nice, went from red to green for the day. But here's a perfect example. And I find it funny that, like, to me it's a very like logical thing, right? AMD did not have like a great, like, in terms of their earnings expectations, right? They did not beat their earnings expectations. So look at what they, and I'm not picking on AMD. I like the company, but it is what it is, right? They just didn't deliver a very strong report. They brought in their guidance, and they may have their own reasons for that. Maybe they want to be buying back stock here. I don't know. But it could certainly change with AMD, because AMD does change on the anticipation of like a new chip, or if there's good demand for that chip. But take a look at what AMD has done versus SMH. Why has that happened and not with AMD? It's very simple. It's because their earnings, right? A lot of times, if a company did not increase their sales, or in terms of what the street was expecting, they kind of go sideways, and rallies get sold into a bit, right? And they end up underperforming their group, right? Speaking of one name that I thought was really good, really really interesting in this group, excuse me, sorry, is what this Onto did. I like to find these newer names like this in a hot area, which of course the semis are. But this is another earnings report that may not have been on the top of people's lists. But this is what's fun, right? You could find something like this, right, and look at the momentum in this. And I don't think this stock is done, but we'll see. We'll see what kind of market conditions that we get next week. I just wanted, speaking of next week, right? I've talked in a few of these videos about the market webs, right, and what we're basically doing for this, right? And this is the offering that we have, right? So this is market webs on TradingView. It will be a subscription, so it'll be $39.99 a month. But just for this weekend only, we're offering a free trial, right? We won't, I think we're either going to do a 10-day or 15-day trial after this weekend. We've already had a lot of people sign up for the free trial. And what we're going to be doing on Monday after the close, probably either at 5 or 6, I'll have more information over the weekend. We're going to give like a tutorial, and it's going to be me and Web Begol, who will walk through like how to set up the market webs on TradingView, right? What settings and what customization you can do. And then we'll also go through examples, and we want to take questions. When we usually do our webinars for Tribeca Trade Group, what we usually do is just ask people to bring charts, and we kind of go through on the fly of what we're looking, what the market webs will basically tell you, in terms of that. So marketwebs.com, you can sign up there, and again, 30 days for free. Like I don't usually do free trials, but we won't be doing it after this weekend. So get involved. I don't know if we're going to have to cut it off at some point, because we've already had a lot of interest, which is great to see, and it should be a big turnout hopefully for that webinar. And here's an example, right? Look at that virgin point of control takeout. Again, all these are drawn, automatically. You don't have to do anything, right? For volume at price, you don't have to anchor anything, right? It's all done automatically. And that's a good example of, price just going right up, big move for this Cloudflare today. And it's crazy because there's a couple things that I want to point out here. But number one, I mean, for it to go right there and just center right around that virgin point of control, it's now a battleground between where there's sellers in the stock and new buyers in the stock. And look at the volume today. So someone said this to me. Or not to me, but I saw this yesterday, right? Somebody said basically, "Hey, did somebody know about Cloudflare's earnings?" They may have, there was a very big amount of volume, right, that happened. Yes, let me just zoom in here a little bit so that you could see this a little bit better. But I just find this interesting, right? Here's what happened here: big volume, right? And the stock really rallied yesterday, and it was kind of tough because there was a lot of momentum in the market yesterday. But I'll give you another example, and you may think to the contrary, right? So look at what happened with Expedia today, right? Look at the volume yesterday in Expedia. It's a very similar chart to Cloudflare. And do you think that this was giving you a clue? So sometimes it's very difficult, I think, around earnings season, because what could be a very good looking chart, earnings or some event could ruin the chart. So, I mean, I thought this was very good volume too, but you could see it fall flat on its face. So in this case, sometimes they know, or sometimes volume can be a hint. Sometimes earnings, it's just unlucky like that. And even though what could look like a good setup could get ruined to that. And that's the difficult thing about earnings season, is that you're going to get surprises, like that. But overall, I think really interesting. So, where are we in terms of, I wanted to go over SPY really quickly, just the technicals. Listen, there's not much to really say here. Yes, we are getting overbought. Or, I shouldn't say we're getting overbought. We are overbought, right? But price is above the 5-period moving average. So, I get the arguments on breadth, and I get the arguments on some divergences, right? But, to me, price is king. And price and trend are still they're the highest on the factor for me, right? And if we're staying above the 5-period moving average, you're gonna argue that the trend is different than what is on your screens? And the bigger companies, yes, it's a market cap weighted index. The bigger names will move the market more. That's what leaders do. That's why they're the highest weights. You don't get to the highest weight in the S&P by accident, right? You have to earn it, right? You have to be the biggest company. So that's what's going on. I think what's also interesting is what's going on with the RSP, the equally weighted. This is starting to kind of turn higher here. It's kind of, I don't know if this is a abstract cup and handle. Here would be your cup, here would be maybe a handle. We'd have to see it extend. It's also kind of like a floating inverted head and shoulders, left shoulder, head, right shoulder. We could maybe draw a trend line here, and it's starting to kind of move up a little bit. So I think that's pretty interesting. And if you look at the Qs as well, we'll do this exercise for the Qs really quickly. Here's Qs, same thing, staying above the 5-period moving average. I can't argue with that. Like, how about the equally weighted Qs, right? That's now above the February value area too, and breaking higher, staying above the 5-period moving average. And again, like, it is what it is, right? It's above these previous highs. It's got momentum to it. Look at the volume on the move higher. So, I think we're in a very compelling market right now. I get that it's complicated, and I think the hardest thing to do, I was on Benzinga yesterday, and we were talking about how one of the hardest things to do is just stay in your trades, right? And I think what gives me more confidence too is just to see the amount of breakouts and the amount of momentum in this market, and it kind of helps when you've got a lot of doubters, about what's going on too. I was going to go through a couple other charts with you, and then we'll call it a weekend. I'll also review the weekly performance, but this is just like we talked about with the small caps. Look at how fast this move was. Right. Going back a couple weeks ago, it was a buy the rumor, sell the news. It really got hit on the news, right? But we kind of spent some time regrouping, consolidating here, and that's a closing high for this year for Bitcoin. So I have to say that that's another impressive one, right? And some people like to use Bitcoin. I'm not sure if I buy into this, but some people like to mention that Bitcoin is a risk on barometer. So you've got this. If you believe in that, that's breaking higher. A couple other. I'm just going to throw some singles names in here that I thought have been interesting too in terms of earnings. Maybe a couple ones that aren't on your radar like On2, right? This is Modine Manufacturing, right? They're involved in I think they're involved in buildings, which brings me to this one too. This is Griffin, right? Also strong earnings report, moving higher. This is NXT. This is a measurement company for solar, right? That's been doing pretty well. Solar had a nice day today. Again, I stick with the strong earnings. That's my system, relative strength. Also, I mentioned some, building names. Here's what the XHB, this was my chart of the day a couple days ago. Look at it start to take that next leg higher. Look at the weekly chart, by the way, and we can, now look at some weekly charts. But look at how nice this XHB is for a weekly candle, right? Consolidation, going sideways and starting to resolve higher. The next ones I want to talk about is biotech, right? This is one I've been watching in here and I've been really interested in since the beginning of this year. It's starting to to press to the upside there, and it did break above. It is above the value area for the year. And then if I switch back over to the daily chart, right, it's again, look at the size of the value area, right? It's super thin for this month, and again, it's leaning higher. So I didn't really want to put much risk on at the end of the day. Like, I'm always kind of more of a net seller into this. I sold some Snowflake today. I got very close to that virgin point of control. Amazon, which I profiled yesterday, also has made the turn higher. I'm looking to sell this at 177.20. Microsoft, another name too that talked about how that Microsoft kind of did the same thing last earnings, right? Last earnings, it was just kind of I think it was a tough time. This time, I don't know. I don't really have a great reason why Microsoft sold off like that on earnings, other than it did make a nice run. But look at how similar that looks, right? Now, I'm not saying it's going to do the same move, but I think it's pretty darn strong. All right, so that's reviews the some charts that I wanted to go over. Here's how we finished for the week, right? Again, we already covered blockchain, but we could look at the solar ETF really quickly just to see how that what that looks like. Again, it's been one of the underperformers. Where's my spreadsheet for year to date? Oops, wrong spreadsheet. Spreadsheet for year to date, which is right here, right? Look at this column. So solar is still down 15% year to date. Note the semis are almost the opposite, up 16%. FANG stocks or internet stocks are up 9%. Software, communications, tech, once you get past tech, then it starts to move down a little bit. But healthcare, medical devices, are in there too. There's your biotech, which is just up 2%. One other thing I was going to mention too, which I find really interesting. Oh, so let me finish the solar. This is sometimes how my mind works on a Friday. But yeah, so I'm not sure I would go after this because it's got a lot of work to do. I like to stick to uptrends. But anyway, interesting to see that solar finally on the win column rather than on the right side, underperformance. All right, so there's your performance again, top heavy. cryptos, solar, semis, Chinese internet names did well this week, and those bios too to kind of round that out. Last thing I'll go over here with you guys is well, almost last thing is what I find. I had to double check the math here, but it is true. The ARC Innovation ETF month to date, we're not even halfway through the month. It's up 9%. And look at the IBD 50 list as well, right? That's that was a underperformer last year. It's up 9% month to date just this month, right? I mean that's really big momentum for those two areas of the market. All right, and finally, here's how the TTG watch list finished. I think I have that in here. Oops. There we are. There it is. I mean, listen, this was a stellar week. Every weekend I go through this process of putting together a watch list, screening names, and we have a trigger for this. Members, I also put this in FinViz now for members so that they can monitor it on their own. And I update it, as I add more names, giving them in our mail that goes out middays and end of days. You get the updated watch list with triggers. But man, how many names are in deep green here? Celsius had a good one. I mean, not the solar, but the cyber names. By the way, here's what the cyber ETF looks like too, right? I was really surprised at how a couple names. This is cyber. This is not the ETF. But look at this move. This name, for whatever reason, people don't pay attention. It seems like doesn't get that much attention anymore. But look at the move that had, right? And here's the overall cyber ETF. I mean, just amazing momentum. That's a big gap up today, and continues to kind of act very, very well right now. Your Palo Alto, your CrowdStrike, and then a few others in that group too are really have been acting super, super well. Just to kind of round out this watch list for you, Taiwan Semi, amazing. I think that was one of the best performers. Yeah, it was the second best performer outside of SMCI, and a few other names in here too. Yeah, there's the On2 that we mentioned. DraftKings had a good week, little run into the Super Bowl, very nice. AAOI, which I think is pretty interesting. All right, look at this chart. It does not look bad here. That'll be on the watch list for next week too. I like this little move here, and certainly not extended. All right, guys, that is it for the video for the weekend. You could go to be a member of Tribeca Trade Group, tribecatradegroup.com. And also the market webs, which we will be giving a webinar on Monday, answering all your questions, getting you set up properly if you are not for the free trial. Have a great weekend, everybody, and hopefully it's a great game on Sunday.